All right. Welcome back, Chelsea fans, to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. Of course, I am your host, Nick. And if it's a Wednesday and we haven't talked to Matt Law in a while, you know that we're going to talk to Matt Law. So it's a Matt Law special. And the only person that could join us on a Matt Law special is the incredible Matt Law. Matt, how are we doing?
You've built me up far too much there. It'd be funny if you had a Matt Law special with like Ben Jacobs or something. Do that one day. Just send everyone a bit mad. I'd like that.
How's it going? It's been
Yeah, I'm
about a
good.
month
I'm good.
since we last
I'm
talked.
I'm good. I'm good. I feels like I quite like this time of season. It feels like we're really heading into sort of running. I know we're in an international break as we talk, but I feel excited for the running for many different reasons. I know maybe you don't feel quite as excited at the moment, but I like this time of season.
Yeah, I enjoy spring for sure, more than winter. So this time of year is pretty decent. For Chelsea though, perhaps not. We're on a 4 game losing skid, and in fact, I think since the last time that we chatted, it's been about as bad as it can be for Chelsea this season. It's you're looking at a 2-1 loss to Arsenal. You're looking at the only good result of the entire period,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
was
Thanks for that. Cheers.
beating
Yeah.
Villa. No idea where that came from. Then the Wrexham FA Cup game, which was kind of crazy and all over the place, ends up in a 4-2 win in extra time, and then just slaughtered by PSG 5-2. Terrible loss to Newcastle at home, 3-0 to PSG at home, and a 3-0 loss to Everton away at a stadium we hoped we wouldn't be cursed in. But I suppose you have to try if you're not going to get cursed. Uh, and we can't really say that because I think the stat that's running around this week, and I know there's a lot of different ways to interpret stats and to talk about things like running and distance covered and all that sort of stuff when you are typically a possession dominant team
Yeah.
versus a team that isn't. Like, I'm not putting all my stock into the running stat, but the fact that you've been outrun in every Premier League game this season, I think might signify perhaps that the squad is not as deep or potentially as um, ready for the big time as maybe was suggested heading into the year. So let's pick it up there. I mean, results have been bad. Rosenior's selections have been bad. Players have been bad, and the whole ownership was there to see it against PSG.
Yeah. Look, it's as you say, bad is a good word. It has been bad recently. Apart from that one game against my club, which I was there for and thoroughly didn't enjoy. But yeah. Look, there's no dressing up since the sort of last 20 minutes of PSG when they had their meltdown. They just haven't got out of it. I mean, it's stunning how they've let that spiral and how they haven't reacted to it. I know that when Liam Rosenior first came into Chelsea, one of his first observations to the squad, he said it publicly, but I know he also said it privately to the squad, is you do what I've seen of you, you do not react well enough to setbacks. You react badly to setbacks. You're a bad team at coping with setbacks, whether it be, and by setbacks, I don't even think he meant an entire result. He meant like just a decision going against them in a game and stuff like that, or
Sure.
or the odd little thing. He wasn't even talking huge monumental things. And I think he thought, and I thought actually, that they were making some progress on that. Because if you remember, they played abysmally against West Ham for, I don't know how long it was, an hour or so, but then came back. They came back in Napoli. And I thought, finally, this team's showing a bit of resilience. I think I might have even spoken to on one of here about, one of the pluses I'd seen early on in the Rosenior reign. And I know that was something he was eager to get on top of. And from a point where it looked like they were making progress on that score, since that PSG meltdown, it's actually got worse. Like their reaction to adversity and their mental resilience has been zero. It's been like honkingly bad. And to let that 20 minutes in PSG just completely derail your next 4 games is for me not forgivable. It's unforgivable, and professionals shouldn't. That's what a professional is. A professional is being able to cope with these. It's what's meant to separate professionals from amateurs, that you are mentally tough. We hear it in so many sports that the difference between top professional and amateur is actually the mental side. You can have all the talent in the world, but
Mhm.
the mental side is where these guys are meant to be different. And they've failed on every score on the mental side since that meltdown in PSG. And I am honestly, I know people are saying, some people say it's no surprise, the age of the squad, we've seen it before. But I am actually surprised at how badly they've just spiraled since then. And that's why I do think, I've got to say, I think I'm going to actually say they're lucky that there's a break. Because if there wasn't a break, if they were heading straight into Man City this weekend, I would really fear for them. A break and a Port Vale game in between time gives them an opportunity now that they absolutely have to take to reset and regroup.
Yeah, I think you want to talk about like the resiliency and like the never say die attitude and
It's not just never say die, though. It is never say die, but it's also just like it's just like it's the ability to actually move on as well. It's the ability to be able to put a result or something behind you and carry on. And that to me is a bit different from. I'm not just talking about like the traditional John Terry types. It's also just an emotional intelligence that just hasn't been there. Sorry to interrupt you.
no, I think for a lot of people and myself included, this is what separates this group, this ownership from the previous group, the previous ownership. There used to be a feeling at Chelsea, no matter how stacked the odds were against them, 3-0 down, 2-0 down at the new camp, whatever, imagine your hardest scenario that the team, by and large, not always, but by and large, wouldn't quit and would throw everything they had at it, whether they won or lost or drew, I should say. There would not be a sense that, woe is us. We're gonna just kind of
Yeah,
delicately throw in the towel here. It would
yeah,
have it would have been met with, that those last three goals at PSG would have been met with a absolute domination of Newcastle at the weekend. They would have been so mad
yeah.
that that
I
happened.
agree. Yeah,
And it's hard to even imagine that last 20 minutes of PSG happening to those previous groups in the same way that it happened to this group, right? So for a lot of Chelsea fans, I think they, and I'll speak for myself primarily here. I think I have just accepted that this is not remotely close to the standard that we are used to, and it hasn't been for some time really. But I think for a lot of folks, there was always a hope that there could be like a return to that sort of like, oh man, this sort of Chelsea is the hard nosed,
yeah.
you know. I
I
don't see
just
it.
yeah. I mean, the PSG home game last week when they went 2-0 down.
That's pathetic. I
I,
mean,
I mean, they went 2-0 down. Okay, that wasn't great. But what I really didn't like about after 2-0 down is I felt the players and the coach. I'm going to put the coach into this. Felt they gave up.
mhm,
I felt they gave up. And actually, whilst the time may have been gone, as you say, in terms of what Chelsea are as a football club and have been built as a football club, it's unforgivable to give up. And also, it's a massive rookie error. And like the substitutes that signalled he'd given up on that match and was thinking about the next match actually was another massive rookie error. Because look, look what you can do if you'd have fought back to even to 2-2 or 2-1 and make it a game. It would still change the momentum and the feeling
mhm,
around going into the next game. What actually happened was everybody just gave up and thought, well, this is gone. So
mhm.
we'll start taking off all our best players. It doesn't matter really what happens in this match, and we'll start thinking about the next match. But actually, that's a really bad idea apart from anything, because the negative momentum spirals. You don't wrestle back any positivity to head into
Yeah.
that match. So I was sat there against PSG almost stunned that I could watch a Chelsea team just give up on a match. Never really seen it before.
Y- I mean, Going into that match, though, were you surprised at that? I wasn't surprised that that
I
happened.
was, I was, because what I thought would happen was, yes, the tie was gone for me, and
Yeah.
yes, I expected them to lose on the night. I did expect them to lose on the night, but I didn't. I thought they would see the value of the match, of the 90 minutes, and what that can mean for the rest of your season. I mean, look at what Villa did with PSG last season. They went 2-0 down after 15 minutes, having lost 3-1 out in PSG. They were never going to get through the tie, but they actually ended up winning the game 3-2. And it set them up for a very good end to the season. I know they missed out on Champions League qualification. And there's loads of examples of that happening, of just make the 90 minutes or the match as positive as you can. Get something out of it. I mean, to have a scenario at 60 minutes when the third goal goes in, to have like half the ground walking out. I mean, again, this isn't a puppet. I get why this isn't me at shock at the fans. This is
No,
me
no,
in
no.
shock. This is me in shock at Chelsea are in a situation whereby the fans feel it's worth just leaving on 60 minutes. Again, like it's not what I recognise Chelsea to be, and that was very concerning. And I did think it was a really rookie error by the coach and the players not to see the value of the momentum in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think there was a series of different posts going around after the Everton game, and I whether you buy stock into this or not, like I think there is an element of truth to it, which is that Chelsea right now are kind of performative. They look the part. They do the social media promotion. The coach says something interesting, but when it comes down to just the blood and thunder of it all, it's lacking. That this team, when they are on the front foot and when they are front running, they are really good, and the mentality's good, and everything's good. And when they're not, the evidence is mixed that they have the sort of resilience that we've been talking about at the start of this show to make a fight of a 3 goal deficit against one of the better teams in the world. Like,
The only player I saw actually who seemed to be pissed off and trying to do something was, all of a sudden Chalobah started trying to run through PSG on his own. He
mhm.
suddenly started to try and take. He did it about 3 times. Just got the ball. He looked so pissed off with his teammates that he just didn't pass to them, and he just started charging through them. And that was the only sign of a player I saw who was thinking, "Do you know what? You know, sod this. I am not standing for this. Even if this goes wrong, I'm going to try and do something." That's the only thing I saw in there. But you're right. They hate the accusation of being performative. They absolutely hate it, but they can't argue with it at the moment, and they're going to have to prove. They haven't proved differently so far, so they're going to have to prove differently, because at the moment you can't argue against that accusation that they are performative.
And that is, I think, what a lot of fans, myself included, don't recognize, right? Which is uh cool. You're up 2-0 against PSG in the
Yeah,
Club World Cup and you get a third. The vibes are high. Everything's
yeah,
smiles abound.
yeah,
Everyone's feeling fantastic, right? A 3 goal deficit against PSG. Not only do you not really fight back or give it a go, you get dog walked at home
yeah,
in the Champions League. Something that, I think even if you are out on the clear like ownership, you wouldn't have saw an 8-2
yeah. I
aggregate.
I
An
know, I
8-2
know.
aggregate's insane, man. I
I
mean,
know,
that's
it's
like
horrible.
you didn't even show up to 75 minutes of that game, really. So, I am as down as I have been in some time. I'm not letting it ruin my mental health, but the facts are what they are. Like when you look at it on paper, when you watch it with your eyeballs, when you see the quotes after, when you see the reaction to everything,
I
it's
think I
bad
think one of
times.
the I think one of the worst emotions in football is being embarrassed of your team. I've been
Oh, I agree.
I, I've been embarrassed of Villa way too many times to count, and it's always the worst emotion. Hard defeats are bad. Unlucky things happening are annoying.
Mhm.
The worst emotion is being embarrassed of your team or your club, and that to me feels like what a lot of Chelsea fans are. in this last 4 games that they are embarrassed, and that is a horrible place to be.
You know what I've never understood? I've never understood the person who would rather see their team get blown out rather than lose a heartbreaker, you know? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I've never understood that because I think sports are this incredible emotional energy generator. Like
yeah,
that it can bring out for some of us, and we're all kind of lunatics here. It can bring out the absolute highs and it can bring out some of the lows, right?
yeah,
And uh it is I think in addition to being embarrassed, being apathetic is probably the most dangerous
yeah,
emotion in
yeah,
sports. Like if you're
yeah,
not in it,
yeah. If you stop
feeling it,
caring, yeah,
I,
yeah,
I I think that is where a lot of people are right now.
yeah,
Not only are they embarrassed, I mean, 8-2 on aggregate. Jeez. Yeah, embarrassed for sure. I mean, and taking stick off of every other fan base that hates us all the time. That's not the most fun feeling that you've ever had, right?
yeah.
But there are a lot of people who are like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually a dangerous place for a club to be. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a dangerous club for a place to be. So, I mean,
I
look, go on, carry on.
no, I was just gonna say like all this is compounded by the fact that since we last talked, Reese, who had enjoyed a relatively injury free 18 months back on the injury table. Trev, that horror tackle that Trev
I mean,
sustained,
Trev's sensationally lucky, you know. Like,
I have no clue. I mean, the photo makes you want to throw up. Like
yeah.
it's genuinely an
I
awful
mean,
thing to
the
look at.
photo tells you he's broken his ankle, and you know he's
His foot's the other
yeah,
direction.
yeah. I mean, the photo tells you the ankle's broken, and the guy's not going to play for a year or something. You know what I mean? So for him to get the result he's got of sort of 6 weeks or whatever it is, that's it's not. It is unbelievably lucky, like ridiculous. And obviously, he's put out some social posts
Yeah.
thanking God and whatnot because he's very religious, and you can see why because like
I,
they obviously all thought immediately, and Trev looked inconsolable as he was being carried off. They obviously all thought the ankle was broken to start with. How
yeah,
it's not, I just don't know.
but and how is that not even
Oh,
called
I
a
don't know.
foul
I
on
don't
the
know. I
field?
don't
And
know.
that
I don't know.
it's
I mean, we could, if we're going to talk about officials, we'd have to do a whole new show because honestly, they're
yeah,
the worst of the.
honestly,
They are, the standard is it's the worst of the worst. It is the worst of the worst, and that's all I really want to say. Because we would have, and I'll do a show if you want me to do a show, but we'd have to do an
mm,
entire show on it because it's the worst of the worst.
that's our
But
summer series. We're all officials all the time, you know?
but those two injuries are really really
Devastating.
problematic because take away everything on the pitch, which is huge.
Mhm.
It's the characters and the off the pitch and what they give Chelsea in terms of leadership. And I think we saw a very immediate example of that. I almost said at Goodison, but at the Hill Dicko,
Yeah.
um, uh, because they are the guys who will grab people a little bit, who will lead, who will connect various different factions in the dressing room as well, and get round everyone rather than people being in their groups. And when they're injured as well, I know Reese will sort of be part of the dressing room, be part of the bench where he can, and things like that as his role as captain. But you still sort of lose it on a day to day. You
Mhm.
don't just lose it on the pitch; you lose it on a day to day basis.
Yeah.
And that 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 for me is actually as important, if not maybe even a little bit more important with this group than actually what they lose on the pitch too. I, I mean, I think Trevor is actually hoping to be back after the Manchester games if everything goes to plan, which would be
Really?
insane. But
Yeah,
that would
wow.
be a huge boost. Reese is more difficult to call, obviously, but those two together, that was. I mean, it was a horrible 10 days or whatever it was for Chelsea in so many different respects, and that was really really bad. Those injuries for them, but every team has injuries, and you can only this is what we have the squads for. This is why the
Mhm.
teams spend the big money, and you can only give them so much of a pass over the injuries.
Yeah, I I guess just, like, shifting gears a little bit to Rosenior, who I think most most fans heading into this stretch were fine-ish with Rosenior. I think most reasonable people would suggest that whatever happened this year was not going to be the fault of Liam Rosenior by and large. He was brought in January after a tumultuous end to the Maresca reign, and it's a season that if we're just looking at it right now, all evidence will suggest that the season's never really gotten out of second gear for Chelsea. There have been some incredible highs. There
It's
have
been
been
stop start, hasn't it? Is how I would
some,
describe it. Stop start,
yeah,
stop start.
some desperate lows, though, right? I mean, it's really one of those types of seasons, and we've been here before, so we know what they look like. But I think these last four games have perhaps introduced some doubt for people about his ability as a manager and what he's seeing and his strategy. I had huge questions about his strategy against PSG. That to me was, ridiculous at best and absolutely absurd at worst to try and man mark one of the best passing and scoring teams in the world. When not only has he had success with them before at Strasbourg, but there was a blueprint to play against PSG, and we just simply did the opposite of what that blueprint would suggest. I don't know. Like, are you seeing what I'm seeing here? Like, is this?
Well, the problem that Chelsea got is what they've got is they've got a squad of players who, as a collective, have never played in the Champions League before, and
Sure.
never combined a Champions. And the ones that have played small bits of Champions League, but combined with leagues that aren't as competitive as the Premier League. So you've got a whole group of players who have never played Champions League alongside Premier League before. You've then got a head coach who's never coached Premier League and Champions League side by side before, and I think it was a massive wake up call for all of them that around that PSG tie about how brutal and how difficult it is trying to manage games against the top European sides together with difficult Premier League games. And it is brutal these days. And, we see how other clubs are struggling with it. I'm not excusing Chelsea, but you see how other clubs are struggling. It is brutal, and they're struggling with it with people who are experienced at it and who have experience of it. Chelsea have zero experience of it in their coaching staff, both Rosenior and his backroom staff, and basically as the squad. So it is
You
a
have
huge wake up call.
you have a couple of games of Trev from Tuchel, and then you have Reese, right? I
Exactly,
mean,
and yeah, and
and a little bit of Enzo from that
a bit of
terrible.
Enzo, but
Yeah.
again, Enzo, Enzo going back a little bit, but also some of these who might have had a bit of previous clubs were then combining it with leagues where it's just not as brutal in the league. So it's different, and that's caught up with them. I think that has been underestimated in terms of the recruitment and the planning for the season, of having everybody trying to combine these two things for the first time, of how difficult and how punishing that is. And I think that was underestimated. And I haven't spoken to anyone about it, but I'd like to see someone try and argue against me that was underestimated in the planning for the season.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of where you sit today with Rosenior's tactics, all this stuff, like
Look,
where is that?
look, I still find it difficult with Rosenior because he's had 17 games in all competitions. He has 10 games in the league, and you can really split his tenure in half.
Mhm.
First half good, second half not so good, as Sven-Goran Eriksson used to famously say about the England team. And it was always being very, downplaying quite how bad the not so good was. So I still find it difficult to have an overall picture. But I mean, look, his points per game are actually higher than Maresca's was when he left at this point this season. Rosenior's 1.7, Maresca was 1.6. So it's not been a disaster overall by any means. He's not, and he's actually brought a small improvement overall in the league. But it's the way these last sort of not just the 4 defeats, but going back to the draws as well. The sort of last 6 to 7 games do have highlighted difficulties. I mean, the last 4 games, I think they've conceded 12 goals. I mean, the defence has just like fallen apart under him recently. He's caused an unnecessary situation with the goalkeepers, which I've got to say, we could look back at that moment as being the
Yep.
moment where he lost the season. I've got to say, because
Yep.
for all of Robert Sanchez's faults and for all of the fact that I will agree and have spoken on here loads of times that I don't believe that you're going to win anything meaningful with Robert Sanchez in goal. Robert Sanchez was having a perfectly fine season. He
Mhm.
wasn't a world beater, but he certainly wasn't going to cost Chelsea anything. And in actual fact, he'd probably won them a few points. But I think he was probably having at Chelsea so far his best season so far. Yes, he had a bad game at Arsenal, but then to do what he did in that PSG game and then have to revert back, he's just created this whole world of shit for himself over the goalkeepers at like the most important point of the season as well. It's not like we're in October where you can sort of manage your way out of this and
Well,
you can just to do it when you're at the most critical time of the season, when you have knockout games, when every game in the league feels like a cup final for Champions League qualification. To create this situation is madness. It's utter madness.
this is I think a manager's job. I am not a professional at this. Obviously, I talk no microphone, but I think a manager's job, in the most pure sense of the job, is to get the best out of the players that they have.
Yeah, of course.
And for the life of me, I cannot understand having plenty of tape on Robert Sanchez in a possession dominant system where he's expected to make the right decisions under high pressure with his feet. I do not understand for the life of me why that is our strategy right now.
Well,
It blows my mind, Matt. It's
you're, you're
not. It doesn't make sense.
you're asking the one person in your squad who, because he's a goalkeeper, must be the worst player with his feet. Must be, even if they're good with their feet, to have the ball at their feet more than any other player on the pitch by a lot as well, not just by a little bit. So and if you think about it, if you're in midfield, even if you're a fantastic passer in midfield, you can lose the ball. You can lose the ball. You do it in goal,
It's
you
over.
lose the ball. It's over. So I'm not saying like I'm one of these guys like pump it forward, don't play like that. Not at all. But to do it so much and give him the ball so frequently at his feet, any goalkeeper, you're basically asking your goalkeeper to be perfect because otherwise something's going to go wrong.
And Maresca realized this, right?
Yeah,
Halfway through last
yeah, he
season,
tweaked it because
Maresca said, "Nah, I think we're giving up a lot here for not that much reward." Like that's
well, he contradicted himself, didn't he? Which I loved because he one week said basically, if Robert hits it long, I'll drop him. And
yeah.
then about 4 weeks later, it was clear that Robert had been told to go more direct and go longer, and it worked. It
Of course it
worked.
did, and then it worked to incredible effect against PSG. Right? Like this is what I don't understand about this team. I don't understand about strategy. You're getting outrun. You have players who are not suited for the system that you're trying to deploy in any way. And by the way, it's not just Sanchez. You have a lot of players in this team who are not suited to this system and
Hmm.
playing it in the way that you think you bought talent to construct into this PSG like team. They're not. They don't have that athleticism. They don't have that talent. What they have shown, I think, to some pretty great effect this year is a lightning quick counterattack when they bunker down and find the ball in midfield and are able to pass it to one of our various outlets and blah blah blah. Give ourselves a much easier time of scoring than running up against a brick wall all the time.
Yeah,
That's what we have shown.
yeah. Well,
But
look what they did to
it's
Villa. It
bad.
was just balls in behind against Villa. Catch the high line. The amount of times they got in on goal against Villa was ridiculous.
It's
And that
bad.
is what they're good at. They're good at playing balls behind and catching teams high up the pitch.
It's bad strategy though, Matt. More than anything, as a person who does strategy for a living, like it hurts me more because it's like so obvious that this is not the best way to get the best out of these players. And I don't know if it's Rosenior putting himself out there to be a tactical genius. I don't know if it is coming from on high at the club to play this way or whatever, but it does not maximize the talents of the squad that they have assembled, in my very humble, in front of a microphone estimation.
Yeah, and look, the evidence is there, is on your side, shall we say, at the moment. They've if they don't like that, they've got to prove that wrong. I agree. I agree. I actually think that he didn't need to. And what I actually thought in the first few matches when I came on is that he'd been quite smart in not really changing too much in the first few matches when they started off okay. And then over time, he seems to have sort of, as you say, done more with it into maybe what he wants them to look like, his sort of utopia of what his team should look like, and it hasn't suited them. And they clearly. The other thing about it is you can tell they don't believe in it.
Totally.
Yeah, the way they're sort of not carrying out instructions and the way they're not really sort of recovering from anything tells you that they don't actually believe in the way they're being asked to play too. So it's very difficult. I mean, what I would say is this is all as well, part of the fact that a mid-season change was made. It's
Totally.
it's
Yeah.
very rare that I know Man United are the outlier here, but they don't have any European football. And actually, they've done it the other way around in that a caretaker's come around and just gone back to basics rather than trying to change anything. But this tends to what happens when you have a mid-season coaching change, and it's why clubs hate having the top clubs hate having mid-season coaching changes, because it creates chaos and it creates uncertainty and it creates belief issues, and that's what this has done. And you know, they didn't. I do have to say they did not plan for this mid-season coaching change either. I mean, Enzo Maresca sort of blew himself up, and they were almost forced into it, and it's really not helped them at all.
Mm.
And I think we're seeing the results of this. If I could, I would like to come on to the change to the Champions League. Are we at a good stage to do that?
Yes,
Because we've been.
we've talked
uh,
about the bad and the ugly. I mean, I guess you have some thoughts on what could be
Well,
good.
I've
Question mark?
decided it's not often I do homework, so when I do homework, I want to show off about it.
Ah,
And
there you go.
there's a positive twist to this because, like, I'm not feeling hugely positive about Chelsea, and I know the fans aren't feeling hugely positive about Chelsea. But when I crunched the numbers, I was actually pleasantly surprised for Chelsea that there is a little bit of positivity in the numbers. So here we go. Chelsea points per game over Rosenior's 10 games is 1.7. He's taken 17 points from 10 games. Were that to carry on over the remaining 7 games, if they stay on a 1.7 points per game average over the remaining 7 games, they'll take around 11.9 more points. So rounded up, they'll get to about 60 points. If you go back to Villa's last 10 games, points per game over the same time of game, Villa have fallen off hugely to a 1.1 points per game. If they keep that up for the last 7 games, they will get to a points total of 62. So they'd be above Chelsea. However, we come on to Liverpool. Their last 10 games, they're on a points per game average of 1.4, which would, if that carries on for the last 7 games, that would put them on a total of 59, 1 point behind Chelsea. The other thing I would point out as well that I do think is significant given how close it is, particularly between Chelsea and Liverpool, and still maybe Villa, is that Chelsea do have quite a far superior goal difference at this stage. Chelsea have a 15 goal difference in comparison to Liverpool's 8, Villa's 5. Villa lost out on Champions League football last season on goal difference to Newcastle. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that this goes down to goal difference somewhere. So Chelsea, as long as they don't keep letting in 12 goals over 4 game periods, if they can keep their goal difference advantage, that could be worth an extra point to them. So I would say at the moment, on numbers alone, and shout at me about the eye test being completely different, but on numbers alone, Chelsea, I would still back to fit just about squeeze into the Champions League places. They also have Liverpool to play, so it is in their own hands, and it's also in Liverpool's own hands. But that match could be absolutely crucial. So I do think people who are writing it off at the moment are writing it off too early. I also will take you back to last season when you've got 7 games left. Everyone's got 7 games left now to play. The equivalent point of last season, you started the final 7 games with a draw at home to Ipswich, which I think I remember. Basically, lots of people wrote off Chelsea's chances of finishing in the Champions League after that draw with Ipswich.
Sure, yeah.
But they ended up taking 16 points out of those. They took another 15 points over the last 6 games after that run. They went on an incredible run. Now, I'm not saying they will or can do that this season, but it shows there is still a lot of season left to go. Seven games gives you a lot of points to play for still. And I don't think it's over by a million miles. I was at Brighton to see Liverpool on Saturday. I got sent to that game this weekend for something a bit different. And I was shocked at how bad Liverpool are and the way Arne Slot spoke afterwards. And their next 3 games are huge. They play Fulham at home, they play Everton away, and they play Palace at home. They're huge because their next 3 games after that are Man United, Chelsea, and Villa. If they don't get a good points total out of their next 3 league games, which come between Champions League games against PSG, which come after a FA Cup quarter-final against Man City, if they can't get 7 to 9 points out of their first 3 games back, I think Liverpool are in massive trouble. So it's all I promise you, whatever you think about how you think it may go, fine. But I promise you it's there all to play for. And Chelsea have to think like that.
Uh, yes, I agree in principle, I guess. I mean, really what it comes down to, though, is I think it's Liverpool and Chelsea playing for the last spot. I think Villa are going to be comfortably in by the end. And you are going to laugh and smile because, yeah, Villa have had a tough run recently. I mean,
1.1 points over the last 10
yeah.
games.
Yeah, it's been bad.
And that includes a win against West Ham at the weekend. Imagine what it would be if we hadn't beaten West Ham at the weekend.
But the difference, though, to me, is that you have senior leadership in your team to recognize and take advantage of the moment. You have a very experienced manager to recognize and take advantage of the moment. You have experience from last year. We didn't take advantage of the moment, and I'm sure that hunger will take over this year. I think at this stage, and it might look laughable if you replay this at the end of May when everything's all said and done, but I think at this stage, if you're looking on the experience and psyche meter, it's Chelsea finishing 6th or potentially worse if it all goes to complete shit, and Liverpool and Villa and United and City and Arsenal. Like that's the way that it'll finish. And I agree, between the 3 teams, none of us have exactly taken the bull by the horns, if you will. But
oh no, I mean it's hardly a race, is it? It's like
who could step on less rakes walking across the yard?
It's like do you know do you do the drinking game in America where people hold onto the broom and drink and then run around in circles and then try and run off and they all fall over? I mean that's the Champions League race at the moment, isn't it? A load of drunk men running around brooms and trying to run in a straight line. I mean that's what it boils down to. But that's what it is. I mean, it doesn't really, for the clubs that end up getting in there, it doesn't really matter. Do you know what I mean? That's just what it is. And by the way, United are still not home and hosed in all this. They have to play.
I think they have to play. Are. Come on.
If Chelsea beat United in a couple of weeks, United will not be home and hosed in all this. United then still have to play Liverpool as well. I don't think anything's decided. I still think do I think it's out of the 3, Villa, Liverpool, Chelsea? Yes. Do I think as we sit here today, it's more likely out of Chelsea, Liverpool? Yes, but I'm not suggesting that Villa have secured anything whatsoever. But there's a lot there still to do, and there's a lot of opportunity. And Chelsea really, in terms of a 10-game average, Chelsea just have to be sort of as good as they've been under Rosenior as an overall package, and they'll probably get there. What they can't be is what they've been the last 4 games. They can't be that, because then they've got no chance. I mean, I don't know. I think Chelsea have got to probably win at least 4, if not 5, of their remaining 7 games, probably. But not necessarily. But also not necessarily. It could be a staggeringly low points for 5th place.
Yeah, there are lots of permutations because all 3 of these teams play some version of each other. Like
exactly. Villa play Liverpool. We
play United and Liverpool, and
Liverpool play United and you guys. So there's it could be a very low total. I know what you're saying about having to look over shoulders. I still don't see the others being consistent enough. I'd be staggered if that doesn't make up the top 6 and someone. I mean, God, if any of them, let's not just make this a Chelsea thing. If any of them fall out of the top 6, it is like a humongous disaster of a collapse to do that.
But it's not really, and here's why: because Brentford on 46 points, yes, they only have a 4-goal diff this season, but they have a striker on their team, and that striker's been playing pretty well. You have Everton on 46 points, all the way down to Fulham on 44 points, and Brighton on 43 points, and Sunderland on 43 points. It's a very middle-heavy league this year.
But you're asking those clubs to win like 5 of their 7 games just to probably get into 6th place.
I'm asking Chelsea Football Club to not totally capitulate and end up in 8th, which I think is a bigger possibility than
Brentford still have to play City away, Liverpool away. They go to Man United away as well. I mean,
they could really be the spoiler in this whole thing.
They could be the decider. They could decide the whole thing. But I think it's more likely that they just fall away a little bit personally. And Brentford also play Everton, so those two can't both win that game as well. So I just think it's unlikely that the others might get close and 1 week out of every so often week look as though they might do, but I think it's unlikely.
Your team has the best and easiest road by a mile left.
Well, all I'm going to do is pick you up on this as well, because at the end of seasons, you just don't know how that works. I remember saying to you last season when we did the thing that I will never forget, my famous prediction for the last, Matstradamus. And I remember highlighting your Liverpool home game as saying, if Liverpool win the title by then, I really fancy to win it because they'll just be on the piss. And similarly, you just don't know quite where some of these teams will be by the time you play them and what they've got to play for and what not. Teams for instance, Villa's next game is away at Nottingham Forest. That is a tough match because Forest have just beaten Tottenham. They are fighting for their lives and they have a bit of momentum. That is a tough match now.
Chelsea play them too, though.
Chelsea play them too, and it will be a tough match, depending again on what the position is by the time they come to Stamford Bridge, don't they, rather than you go there. So I get that. I will accept that on paper, Villa have like what the most desirable run on paper, and I will accept that Chelsea's run on paper is highly undesirable. But then,
to say the least,
but you just don't know how that works out. And look, I think the 2 games against the Manchester clubs are horrible games because City will still have the faintest. They know they've got to win to keep any faint title hope alive. And having won the Carabao Cup, you'd imagine they really go into that. And United are fighting for something and will still be fighting for something. Manchester games are horrible. Brighton away looks like a horrible match. But come on, by then, if Brighton have lost the previous 2 matches before that or lost 1, they'll have nothing left to play for. Brighton away could suddenly look like a much nicer match.
We play terrible down there, Matt.
But do you understand my point? That the matches at the end of the season are much harder to quantify than... I mean, look, you guys might do, and Villa wouldn't want to because of our record against them, but no one really wants to play Wolves right now because they've suddenly become good and difficult. Yeah. I mean, that's laughable earlier in the season that no one would want to play Wolves. Everyone would be begging to play Wolves. So it shows you how the fixtures can be difficult to read.
I actually think Liverpool probably have the toughest run at this point because of the extra PSG games that they're going to have to go through.
And I do think it's key that the PSG games and the FA Cup quarter, which is going to obviously, they've got to go full tilt at that with it being against City. You can't just write that game off. That's bad for them that it falls in what should be the easier league fixtures too, because it negates some of the easiness of them, shall we say. By the time I worked it out yesterday, by the time they go to Goodison, I keep bloody saying it, the Hill Dicko, for the first Merseyside derby at the Hill Dickinson Stadium, they will have played 4 matches after the international break, 3 of which will have been City and 2 PSG games. To Everton's 1 match, Everton will have played 1 match after the international break. Right?
Jeez.
So it just shows you. I genuinely, I think Liverpool are in massive trouble. Massive trouble. They were. I don't see it with Liverpool. And the way Slot spoke afterwards, there's problems at Liverpool. I really genuinely think Liverpool are in massive trouble.
Yeah, I mean, this is all kind of a moot point, though, if Chelsea do not turn up and play some semblance of football,
Look,
and I
if
think that
I said
that's
if Chelsea do anything like they've done the last 4 games, forget it, it's over, and there'll be
yeah.
massive recriminations. You know, there'll be a lot of blame being apportioned here, there, and everywhere, and it will be ugly. They cannot be anywhere near the version of themselves they've been for the last 4 games. And I do think it's a stroke of luck, the international break, because if there wasn't a break, I didn't see them getting out of it. They were like in a tailspin of horrendous negativity for all sorts of different reasons. And without a break, I didn't see how you're going to get out of that. With a break, it gives the opportunity they've got to take.
I guess one question just about a team that isn't Chelsea that you cover. Is Tottenham going down?
I mean, God, they are in massive trouble. They've got
I mean,
what I would say.
it's objectively insane, right, that they're even in this position.
Oh, it's unforgivable. I mean, obviously Chelsea fans will love it because of the rivalry. It's actually unforgivable. It's a disgrace that the club have got to this stage with the squad, with the money they've spent, with everything they've got going in their favour via their revenues and all sorts. It's unthinkable. What I would say is where I think they'll probably just be about okay is in April. They're going to have quite a lot of players coming back. They could even have Madison coming back. They're going to have quite a few guys, and I think that will give them a boost just to get over the line. So I don't think Chelsea will be relegating Tottenham at Stamford Bridge on the final home game of the season for Chelsea. But I
Here I
don't say that. I don't say that with a lot of confidence because you know, I just can't believe they are where they are. And I remember a few weeks ago thinking they've got to get at least 1 win out of Palace at home and Forest at home. And here we are. They lost them both and conceded 6 goals in total to both teams. It's insane. It's utterly insane.
West Ham's run in is surprisingly doable.
Well, here's the thing as well. West Ham's next game is at home to Wolves, and Spurs go to Sunderland. So there's every chance that Spurs, with 6 games to go, are in the relegation zone. Every chance.
I mean, West Ham then have Palace away, Everton home, Brentford away, which will be tough. Arsenal at home, might have already won the league by then.
This is it.
Newcastle away, and then Leeds to finish. I mean,
Leeds should be up by then, so Leeds should be okay by
yeah,
then.
probably.
So
Yeah.
so Leeds becomes an easier match than it might have been. Newcastle away might be easier than you might think because A, they've not been very good at home for a while now, and B, their season is kind of just really just sort of going towards nothing now. Yeah, yeah. Look, but then,
Spurs.
but if you looked
What?
at Forest running is not nice. Forest isn't nice.
Yeah, Force is tough.
They
Sunderland,
had to, that win was massive for them at Tottenham because Forest running is not nice at all.
Tottenham go to Sunderland. They're at home to Brighton, which I don't think they're going to get a result of either of those. Wolves, they should, but TBD.
I tell you what,
Uh,
going to Wolves, I wouldn't fancy them.
you guys are going to beat them. Leeds is going to be a fascinating game at their place because they're both just so you have no clue what you're going to get on a week to
Yeah.
week basis. But you'd probably favor Leeds at this point.
Yeah, again, if Leeds are already safe by then, can they be
Maybe.
safe by then? Again, does that come into it?
Then they go to us.
Or is that the game that Leeds can clinch their safety and then it goes the other way?
Yeah, the whole
Probably.
momentum swing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They finish with us away and then Everton at home. Everton should be.
I mean, Tottenham's worst nightmare is for you guys to, pretty much send them down. It is they're literally their worst nightmare. To think they'd have gone from the battle of the bridge to going to the bridge potentially with relegation. But again, in terms of Chelsea's matches, does Tottenham at home become more difficult if Tottenham literally have to win or draw to keep themselves alive?
For sure.
Yeah, so it's really difficult. But I mean, the Tottenham situation is incredible. I can't get my head around it. If they were to go down, it's up there with Leicester winning the league. Do you know what I mean? In terms of Premier League stories, it's sort of the reverse story. I can't laugh about it because I cover Tottenham and I know people who work there, and some people's jobs will be at risk and stuff like that. So I understand from a Chelsea's perspective why you would find it quite funny.
Well, yeah. I mean, if the shoe was on the other foot, I think
Look, if the shoe was on the foot, and if it was Birmingham City, for instance, and being a Villa fan, I would laugh. But yeah, it's crazy. It's utterly crazy. It's going to be very interesting. You've got this Champions League battle. You've got a very interesting relegation battle now as well. I do think it's going to be a really interesting end to the season.
And I do bring that up only because when you talk about Chelsea's end of season, like the context for this time of year is that if you're playing a team that's like safely in the middle and has nothing to
That's what
really
you
go
want.
or to lose, that's where the term being on the beach comes from, right?
The two best case scenarios are you get the mid-table clubs who have really, like you say, got nothing they can achieve in terms of Europe or any fears. The other great one is what you got last season. If you can luckily get the club who's just achieved something. So literally they've been on the piss all week. So if they've just won something, or they've just got in the Champions League, or they've just made themselves safe, and you've seen all week on social media all these pictures of them celebrating. You go into that match thinking, do you know what, I fancy this, because I think that's the sweet spot. Get that team who are just celebrating having achieved something. That is the sweet spot.
I think on a future episode, I do want to talk about some of the potential implications of what happens if Chelsea does not achieve.
Yeah, I think I'm happy to talk about that. I think probably I'd like to do that if we know that that's happening. I don't like sort of just randomly throwing it out there, but I obviously have thoughts on that. But I think it's probably fairest to do when we know where the actual season is heading a bit more. Because, like I say, my number crunching tells me that they've still got a very good chance.
We'll call you Mathstradamus. That's really where we're going to go with
Hey,
this.
if this one comes up right, imagine if you finish 5th with 60 points and Liverpool finish 6th with 59 points, I retire. That's me done at that point. I retire.
This would be the greatest back-to-back season prediction at the end. It'd be crazy.
It'd be an all-timer.
And this was much more positive than I had anticipated at the end here. I do want to quickly touch on one thing that did come out in the lead up to the PSG game last week, and that is this Not a Project CFC interview with what was revealed to be Danny Finkelstein.
I revealed that. Yeah.
Yep. This is a kind of a wild thing. And by the way, this is not the only time where someone on the board, whether unnamed or named, has spoken to kind of fringe journalists or fringe fan groups or whatever to try and I guess make their point in a different way to a different group. But I guess in your estimation, because I'm sure you have had run-ins with Mr. Finkelstein before.
I know Danny quite well. I've spoken to Danny quite a lot. He won't mind me saying that.
Is this indicative of like the mentality within the director core that this is the sort of like fly in the face of results sort of stuff?
No. Danny, I'm not betraying any trust here. Danny will be fine with this. I know Danny well enough. I spoke to him at length just before I wrote the story about this meeting he had with the protest group. Danny, what I would say first of all, Danny is an absolute diehard, lifelong Chelsea fan. He bleeds blue. He is like the biggest fan, like you guys are, like many of the listeners are.
Yeah.
And he will always, always, always. He's one of these types of fans. Let's separate the fact for now. I'm going to come on to the fact he's a director and where I fear he's been naive because of this. But just as a fan, he is one of those kind of fans who you meet who will always defend the club, always. And there are lots of fans like that. There are lots of fans who like to have a go at the club all the time. There are other fans who are maybe more in the middle. And there are fans of every club who will defend the club no matter what. They'll always defend the club. Danny's one of those fans, always has been, before the new ownership and during the new ownership that he became a director. Danny was put onto the board partly, not solely, but partly as a connector between the ownership and the fans. And that's what he's tried to do. And in this instance, it's blown up in his face because he does meet a lot of fans and, as you say, sort of fringe journalists or commentators, shall we say, and social media commentators. He will see something, for instance, on a YouTube channel or on X or whatever, and if it strikes something with him, he'll have no problem direct messaging that person and arranging to meet them. And he believes that's part of his role, and he believes that he can help doing that by just simply sitting and chatting and giving his opinion. Now, this is where this is blown up in his face and caught up with him, because as a director of the club, as much as the club needs to communicate with fans, and it's good to, doing it sort of on your own and just expressing your own expression of how you support Chelsea, basically, is a naive thing to do. I mean, you're sort of in the game anyway, and you would know why it's naive. You have to assume that everything's going to come out. You have to almost sit in those meetings almost like you're in a press conference. You've got to assume it's going to come out, whether you've agreed it's private or agreed it's public or not agreed anything. You're incredibly naive if you think this is never going to come out, particularly if you start to use very emotional language, which is what Danny did. And he slipped in his language, and I don't think he'd mind me saying this. It's my opinion. He didn't say this to me, but it's my opinion. He slipped from speaking as a director to speaking as Danny Finkelstein, the supporter.
The fan, yeah. Yep.
And it blew up in his face. And it looks terrible. And look, I wrote the story. I had to speak to him, and I said, look, Danny, I'm not trying to stitch you up, but if a director of a football club tells a protest group that it's fucking obvious we're building a world-class team, when, let's face it, it's not fucking obvious to many people, it's a good story. And he totally understood that. And he understood that he'd got it wrong.
Yeah, I think so. There's kind of two things. When this all came out, and I actually think I quote tweeted your story and said this, like, you have over the years trusted us with stuff in confidence, right?
Yeah.
Where like you're like, hey, this does not go beyond these four walls.
Yeah, of
but
course.
like, and it never goes out.
Never has so far.
Right? Knock on wood. I think if the premise of this meeting was an anonymous meeting between not a project CFC and whoever is running that, and a club director not to be named, and that got out, that is poor from whoever leaked. I think that that's bad, because if they are supposed to have entered that in a safe space to have a real conversation, this is the quickest way to never have one of those conversations.
That's the best point. That the problem with what has happened is that I'm sure, and again, he hasn't said this to me, but I'm sure it causes Danny a great problem in future of trying to engage with supporters. And I think that lots of people who've maybe met Danny in the past would have found their meetings with him to be perfectly, whether they were helpful, whether they were just nice, whether it just gave that particular fan or that particular group the feeling that at least we're being listened to. It's obviously questionable of how regular that can happen given what happened.
Well,
but what I would say is I've spoken to both sides, and there seems to be a confusion over whether this was private. And that's where Danny's naive, because you've got to be absolutely 100% clear. It can't be a grey area of, oh, well, we didn't really say, or I thought it was private, so I guess you guys have thought it's private. You've got to be clear.
Are we on the record or are we off the record?
Exactly.
I mean, it's one of the very basic things that exists.
Exactly. And off the record doesn't mean just not naming the director. Off the record means none of this comes out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in
you need to be
confidence.
clear. Yeah, you need to be fully clear on that. So I don't quite know. Obviously, the two sides seem to be confused on that. Um, and to be honest, that's probably on Danny. He should be a bit wiser on that. I mean, he does write for a rival newspaper to mine too. He should know the rules there.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of where like your point about what does this look like then in the future comes up, right?
Yeah,
Because hypothetically, like there are a lot of Chelsea fans out there who are like, I want the board to speak. I want to hear more about what is going on. I want to understand what the fucking plan is here because it is not going well.
yeah,
And then there's this situation, which I think if there was confusion, again, that needed to be sorted out ahead of time. But the odds that you're going to get a director level person at Chelsea to sit down and have a candid conversation with a group that is admittedly in protest of your whole organization is 0% now.
and
And,
also the one thing fans hate, obviously, and completely understandably, they hate being asked to speak to people and just being given management waffle. Like
totally.
that wastes everybody's time. It's the worst thing ever. But then if there are meetings in future, does it just become management waffle because everyone's so scared about what might end up coming out?
That is 100%
Yeah,
correct. That is where it is going to go. So whatever happened here is not just like it's a fun quote for when Chelsea are in a really bad spot and it looks ridiculous. And I agree. I think Danny did not show his best here, obviously. But if this is a prohibits future candid dialogue, it's been disastrous for everybody because you're never going to be able to have that trust exist unless there's a
yeah.
PR guy present in the room
You
and
don't
there's
put the you
signed
don't put the genie back
documentation.
in the yeah. You don't put the genie back in the bottle, do you? I mean,
No, it's
once the genie's out the bottle, you can't get it back in. So
and there's never been a time and look, I hated these quotes. I don't think, whoever, if Danny doesn't mind you saying it was naive, I hated them. I thought they were arrogant as fuck and I really they're not incongruous or incompatibility with reality at all. But what I hate more is I want this group of individuals to be able to face up to people and prove why they are committed to this model. And I think
yeah,
the odds and the likelihood of that after this episode of getting a real candid look at it all are basically zero. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe I'll be proven wrong and maybe people have thicker
no, I
skin
agree with
than I
you. I agree
perceive.
with you. I
But
agree with you. Yeah,
I
it's
think
hard to
that's
see.
terrible.
It's hard to see a situation where Danny or anybody else feels comfortable or safe enough to speak with any sort of freedom uh, with any groups of fans or fans. But
It's
we'll
never been
see.
needed more though. Like we need it now, and I worry that this is kind of blown up the idea of it.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a fair point. I can't argue with that at all. I think Danny probably deeply regrets how it went. I don't know about the group. I suspect that they feel that it's sort of helped their cause, as it were. And it might well be that they I haven't spoken at length to them, but maybe they just feel that there's enough of the fan base who feel so pissed off that it's worth kind of torching almost everything. And we'll see where that gets everyone. I'm not saying it. I don't really want to offer an opinion on it because I don't feel it's for me to offer an opinion on. Um, you could make arguments for both. Some people like throwing everything up into the air, creating as much chaos as possible, and seeing how it lands. Other people don't.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will have plenty more coming up over the next couple of months as the season really wraps up, and then it's only a couple short months till you're in the warm confines of Kansas City, Matt, for the World Cup. Are you just over the moon to experience my town of residence?
There's a lot of sorting out to do. There's a lot of sorting out to do. I had a big result the other day, and there's a global entry meeting happening in London, and I can get my global entry done in London. Some people
Come
that will mean something to. Other people will be like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But
It's a big deal.
it feels like a big deal, yeah. And trying to get all my internal flights and all that sorted, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I can picture myself there, not too far away. It will come so quick. I know from experience because obviously I've done a lot of tournaments. when you get the last international break before the tournament, oh my God, it comes fast after that. It just fucking races by.
It's all happening. So get some dinners on the books here. But of course, appreciate your insight as always. We'll be talking to you very soon. And Chelsea fans, look, big stretch coming after the international break. Lots more to come. We have a Chelsea and South America update coming later this week. But until then, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.